everyone, this is Clue Cloyd here with Retro Age Gaming, and today we're going to be going through some more Atari 50, the anniversary celebration. Now, earlier in our playthrough, we've gone through the arcade origins of Atari, we've gone through the birth of the console, the highs and the lows, the dawn of PCs, the 1990s and beyond. So join me now as we take a closer look at the wider world of Atari. "1976, the original influencer. From arcade innovation to console domination, Atari defined interactive entertainment for millions of people. Over the years, the company's legacy has been extended and preserved by programmers, players, and ardent fans who identify as both. Born in the arcade. Not only did Atari design and manufacture games in the 1970s, but the company also maintained machines at locations around Northern California as an extra source of income. A steady stream of new coin-operated titles became essential to the young company's success. The birth of Breakout. One of Atari's biggest successes was an even bigger surprise to Atari's lead engineer. Al Alcorn explains how Breakout came to be.
Breakout was really early. It's a ball and paddle game, right? And it was really an idea for Nolan to do that. I mean, he had a lot of ideas. He was the guy that went around me and corralled Jobs into designing this, not knowing that Jobs wasn't an engineer and couldn't do that. And Jobs wasn't about to tell him, but his buddy was. He was just the sweetest, brightest savant. And I come in and Steve Jobs says, "Hey, look at this." And here is a finished game, Breakout, that was not under development. You understand? Typical games took a few months to develop. It was like, got dropped in from outer space, finished game, working prototype. What? And Jobs says, yeah, he claimed he designed it. Oh, no, he didn't. Bullshit. And I found out later that because Woz was coming in at night, he's working at HP, and he liked HP, but Atari was a lot more fun. So I go in and there's a finished game. I'm going, what the f? This is crazy. You heard the story. I'll tell you my version because I've seen some different numbers. But as I understand it, Nolan said he would give Jobs a bonus of $1,000 a chip for every chip less than 50 that he was able to do this with. Now, knowing that this had more objects and stuff than Pong did, and Pong was 76 chips, it's a pretty safe bet that Nolan's not going to have to pay a penny for those, right? Again, Woz is one of the most gifted, brilliant men engineering. Woz designs it with like 24 chips. Now, Nolan didn't say you had to be able to buy the chips. So some of the chips were chips out of Hewlett-Packard that you couldn't get. But there was the prototype of the working game. And you look at a schematic, and I couldn't understand how would this thing work.
Visual storytelling. Arcade games with simple graphics often use the cabinet's marquee, is it marquee? I'm not saying that right. Marquee and side art to convey a story for the game. For Breakout, the image of a prisoner smashing their way through the logo suggested an exciting escape narrative that merely seeing a ball bouncing into bricks could not. Excuse me. Destroyer in 1977. In Mike Albaugh's naval action game Destroyer, players use a dial to adjust a horizontal depth line, then attempt to drop charges on the undersea targets. The similar but simpler Canyon Bomber, with no ship speed or depth control, would appear in arcades the same month. Okay, it does not rotate like the others. But that's the machine. Destroyer. From their destroyer on the surface, players drop charges on the undersea targets below. An analog control dial was used to adjust the depth of the charge, with a lever to select the speed of the player's ship. Okay. So you just move this up and down and drop charges. Okay. It's kind of similar to that 2600 game that we played, although it's a bit easier to tell what you're doing. No! Oh, I screwed that up. I screwed that up big time. Get up there. No! Extended play. What? No, I don't want to extend the play. I want to be over. This is boring. Okay, yeah, so we get the point. We get the point. Okay, let's see. Colorful promotion. Both the English and German promotional flyers for Destroyer feature bright colors in contrast to the actual game's monochrome graphics. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, what was the print? Explosive one-player action. Player controls speed of destroyers. Launch step. Charges to destroy subs. Realistic sonar and explosion sounds. Optional extended play to speed control. Exclusive built-in self-test system. Superbug. Before creating Fire Truck, Wendy Allen made the single-player driving game Superbug. While graphics were shown on a monochrome monitor, translucent film overlays made the car appear yellow and the score appear green. Oh, yeah, when we were going through the arcade origins, this was one of the games that was mentioned, but we did not get to play Superbug, I don't think. So, Superbug, in which players avoid hazards while driving a car on a scrolling road, became Wendy Allen's first game for Atari's coin-op division and was used as the basis for 1978's Fire Truck. Inspired by the popular Volkswagen Beetle, Superbug was developed under the working title City Driver. Okay, how do I control this? Okay, I'm in gear 1, I guess? Okay. And 2, no, 3, and I crash. Okay, let's go back in first gear, second gear, up third gear, fourth gear, here we go. Oh shoot, okay, let's pull out here. Oh shoot, okay, let's get this. Dang it, okay. Alright, let's try this again. Dang it. Okay. 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 Going in third gear, fourth gear. Okay, how did the sand do that? Okay, yeah, that was actually pretty fun. That was more fun than Fire Truck. Marquet. Bob Flemett illustrated the Volkswagen Beetle for the Superbug Marquet, based on a design concept by Evelyn Seda. Daring and fast. The English flyer for Superbug promises super thrills, while the German flyer pitches a game to daring men and fast ladies. Der Tollwinner für Waggersley, Mana schnell Damen und rechnend Aufsteller. Amen. Let's see. Let's see. 1978. Skydiver. Ooh. Skydiver players attempted to land safely in the drop zone for big points. For extra novelty, the cabinet's joystick was shaped like the handles of a parachute ripcord. A home version would appear months later. Oh. Fancy. Guide your Skydiver to the landing platform to win at Owen Rubin's straightforward test of skill. Once the chute is deployed, keep an eye on the wind speed and direction to keep your jumper on target. 3 misses per player. Well, that was fun. Flyer and postcards. Skydiver received a boost in awareness from a flyer as well as a postcard, which also advertises an unusual 2-in-1 cabinet, which would maximize floor space in crowded arcades. Oh, I see. Skydiver. Jim Huther says he started programming the home version of Skydiver before even learning about Owen Rubin's coin-op version. Perhaps great minds think alike? The resulting Skydiver, 2 words instead of the arcade version's 1 compound word, became an early VCS hit. Inspired by the arcade game Skydiver, pressing the button causes a diver to leap out of the plane overhead, and pulling down on the joystick deploys the chute as a player aims for the matching color platform below. Sears issued this cartridge under the name Darediver. Okay. I think I did pretty well. Oh, that's supposed to show the wind direction. Okay. kind of made it. No! Oh well. Cover art. Greg Vance's original artwork for the box cover of Skydiver. It's very nice. Very, very nice. Avalanche. Avalanche players catch rocks that fall from the top of the screen. As speed increases, rocks become smaller, and intentionally irritating white noise becomes progressively louder to break the player's concentration. Larry Kaplan cited Avalanche as a direct inspiration for his Activision game Kaboom. In a nod to Pong's famous player instructions, Avalanche's control panel says catch falling rocks for high score. The irritating white noise heard while catching rocks in the player-controlled buckets below is entirely intentional. It's a design tactic to break the player's concentration. Okay. Let's see then. Let's see. This is actually helping me concentrate. I like the white noise. Oh, it got shorter. Oh no. No! Game over. Oh well. It was fun until they penalized me for being so good. Okay, let's see. Infinite play, almost. Avalanche's promotional flyer notes players can play Avalanche indefinitely as long as they don't miss. Avalanche. Launched as a mail-order initiative in 1981, the Atari Program Exchange APX created an indie publishing avenue for amateur programmers, but sometimes pros too. Both the arcade and APX versions of Avalanche were programmed by Dennis Coble. After publishing hits like Caverns of Mars and Dandy, Atari discontinued APX in 1984. The Atari Program Exchange. Oh, okay. The home version of Avalanche was programmed by the same person who created the arcade version, Dennis Coble. The gameplay remains the same. Use paddle controls to catch falling rocks, but the home computer version adds colored graphics, an upgrade from the monochrome coin-op. Okay. Moves a bit faster, too. Oh, and the rocks change colors, too. No, I lost! Oh, it's player 2's turn. Okay. And yeah, there was no player 2, so that's not going to do anything. No! Okay, player 2, that's not doing anything. It's your turn. Oh, you suck at this. Okay, let's see. We got all these rocks up top. And I died already because I'm too impatient. We're off to a great start. The end. APX software stacks up, promoting both the depth and breadth of the 1983 APX library. This magazine ad touts APX creators as experts in the fields of not just games, but also telecommunications and personal productivity. Why user-written software really stacks up to the best. There's a lot of Atari computer users out there, and many of them write software. They really know what users like and what users want, because honestly, who knows more about users than other users? The Atari Program Exchange APX publishes user-written software for Atari home computers, which means all APX software is written by and for people just like you. Their home management programs are written by people who manage their own homes. Their home office programs come from people whose offices are at home. The APX personal development line is written by those with a natural love for the subjects they choose. APX games are written by game players with one single-minded objective: fun. So next time you're ready to invest in some new software, see how APX programs stack up against the rest. You'll see why Atari home computer users make such great software writers. In fact, you could get so carried away that you might end up writing your own software. If you do, send it to APX. APX, programs for users by users. 1979 Atari football. While Atari suggested using joystick controls to keep costs down on football, mechanical engineer Jerry Lychak created a roller controller that was affordable enough to appease management. And a nod to real-world coaching diagrams, Atari football represents players as simple X and O characters. Visually reminiscent of football coaches' playbooks, Atari Football offers a simplified version of American rules football for two players using analog trackball controllers. A scrolling playfield was an important innovation for sports gaming. Now I understand that song X's and O's. This is what she was singing about. She was singing about Atari this whole time. Okay. You are defense. Select a play. Okay. Go. Okay. I'm ready. Yeah. Do something. Okay. Do something. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Come on. Yes, I'm the defense. I'm the offense. Okay, delay of game. Okay. This is some bull hockey right here. Okay, we're done with that. Jerry Lychak found that trackballs for air traffic control centers cost $350 to $800. Management said, well, it's too expensive. Forget it. We'll use a joystick, so Jerry came up with the trackball that we know and love. It was still more expensive than the joystick, so there was still some griping, but my griping was, no, the game's not worth doing it if you don't do it with a trackball. Mike Alba. Okay. I feel it sucks either way, but that's just me. Promotional flyer. Based on its X and O playbook aesthetic, the flyer for football calls the game a chalk talk that moves. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, 4-player flyer. Following the success of the 2-player cabinet, Atari released the accurately named Atari 4-player football, not only doubling the players, but adding 5 additional plays, including kicking, as field goals were not an option in the previous game. Wow, Atari 4-player football. There it is, you guys. Vector Magic. Atari created just 13 games with vector graphics, 6 of them by 1980. Several have become iconic examples of Atari's coin-op era. Here, developers old and new discuss how vector games required a different perspective on both design and technology. This is back in 1980. This interview isn't, but 1980.
Vectors are amazing things, right? Like the fact that vector graphics were phenomenal, and they continue to hold up really well. So I think when we look at Tempest or Tempest 2000 or Tempest 4000, I feel like those games of all of the games, those old games have aged the best. Not Tempest specifically, but the vector-based games, and Tempest just being a really incredibly strong example of a vector-based game because it still looks beautiful.
Aesthetically, I just think Tempest is a timeless game. Asteroids is a timeless game.
The old CRTs, the cathode ray tubes, had a beam that would go across the screen very fast, and it would draw the line. So you drew that always. So that was always being drawn, and you could turn on and off the beam, or beams if it's color, red, green, blue in color, and create an image. Vector doesn't do that. Vector, you actually draw the lines. So there is no raster going on. The beam isn't doing this down the screen. If you want to draw a red line that goes like that, you put the beam there and you push it across the screen to there. So you are actually doing an Etch-a-Sketch is the best way to think about it.
One of the interesting limitations and why it's so good for space games on Vector is if you don't draw something, the screen is black. It's not kind of sort of gray, it's black.
If the hardware stopped in a coin-op game, the last picture would stay there. If the hardware stops in the vector generator, it goes black because you have to draw it. You're drawing the beams. There's no raster. There's nothing automatic in that. And I like that as well. That meant I could draw something and I didn't have to worry about it again. If I wanted to move it, I just redrew it over here. Before, you have to erase it from that space and rewrite it over here. Yeah, didn't like that. Too much work.
The limitation isn't how many dots you have, it's how many inches of light you have. And a lot of people really love that white on black look.
You could get these really fine details for the time. I mean, if you go back and look at it now, it's not as high res as you think it is, but the ships and the shots and the way it looked, and you could adjust the brightness on an individual item, that bright shot in Asteroids, for example, and that goes across the screen. There's nothing like that. It's just an amazing look, and I wanted to work on it.
We started with black and white. I worked a little bit on Battlezone when I worked on the simulator, which was after Battlezone came out, but if you remember Battlezone, it was green. Those weren't green lines, that was a green template that was over the top that made it green.
I got color when I did Space Duel, which I took over from another programmer who, for some reason, just kind of lost it and left the company and kind of evolved it from what he had started. I wanted more time to work on it, and another programmer was working on Asteroids Deluxe, and I was doing color asteroids. That's what I was doing with it. That's what Space Duel originally started, as color asteroids. And they said, oh, we're not going to do that because Asteroids Deluxe just came out. So they gave the hardware and some of the code I did to Dave Toyer, and he did Tempest. And then some of that came back, and I did Space Duel. So you'll see things that are similar that cross through it.
So Vector Sector was born out of the idea of what if all of Atari's vector games existed in the same universe? And we went from there. It was great to talk to Owen Rubin, who created Major Havoc, Space Duel. And when he played Vector Sector, he got through the asteroids phase and he got to Lunar Lander, and he was like, oh, you should do this with linked ships. And he didn't know that we'd done that. So that was like a thrill. Also, when we got to the end of the game, we played a linked dual multiplayer game. We got to the end, and he was having a conversation with me. He glanced up and he saw that we had his initials in the high scores as a default high score. And he would just threw out a, oh, thanks. Thought that was cool.
Golden Asteroids. This Golden Asteroids cabinet marked the milestone of 50,000 asteroids machines manufactured. Another 6,000 would be produced before the end of its run. This special machine was playable in Atari's office lobby for several years and currently resides in the offices of Mortal Kombat developer NetherRealm Studios. Red Baron. The clean, minimalistic lines of vector monitors were well suited to games with a first-person perspective. Released shortly after the tank-based Battlezone, Red Baron places players inside a World War I biplane in a target-rich environment. Atari would return to a cockpit view in 1983 for a space shooter based on Star Wars. Take to the vector-filled skies with this World War I action game, placing players in the cockpit of a biplane. Red Baron is more target shooter than Flight Simulator. Its airborne military gameplay bridges the gap between two other Atari vector coin-ops, Battlezone and Star Wars. Oh no! This is making me dizzy. Oh my god. I just blew up a house! I blew up a house! That's a Zeppelin! Well, it was a Zeppelin. I'm blowing up the pyramids! No! Okay. Behind me! No! They got me!
Hello.
Hi, Max Power. How are you?
Great.
Good to hear it. We're playing some Red Baron from, was it 81? I forget what year it was. I have no idea what I'm doing, by the way, just for the record. But when do I ever know what I'm doing?
Time lanes are awesome.
Yeah, I noticed it's a lot more games than the other ones. And then it even had some games that they briefly talked about in the other timelines, but for some reason didn't let you play them, like the Superbug. That was pretty cool. I like that better than the Fire Truck. They should have had Superbug instead of Fire Truck in that other one to begin with, but I'm gonna blow up this house. Ah! If I don't blow up myself first. Okay. Do. Oh no. They got me. Oh, I can enter my score. Yeah, no, I can't. I can't figure out how to control it. Okay. That was Red Baron Skill Sense. Both the upright and cockpit flyers for Red Baron note its Skill Sense technology. If the average length of the most recent games exceeded the operator's target playtime, the game would automatically increase gameplay speed and difficulty. Upright and sit-down cabinets. Ooh.
Atari fan here.
Well, hello, Brady Goat 12. Nice to see a fellow Atari fan. Wait, there's 4 pages. Ooh, more Red Baron and Red Baron. I mean, I say fellow Atari fan. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an Atari fan. I'm just a retro fan in general. And whereas I don't care too much for Atari, as I did not grow up with it personally, and I prefer more like Super Nintendo, like NES, Sega Genesis, Master System, all that. I do find it really fascinating, everything that I'm learning about Atari, as that was the generation just before me, so... 1980, divisions Coin-Op and Consumer. Atari was built on the strength of phenomenal arcade games, but the Atari VCS home console eventually led the company to even greater heights. Atari veterans from both sides of the success story explain how the Coin-Op and Consumer divisions ultimately worked together.
Well, at the beginning, it was sort of forbidden to consort with the enemy.
First off, we had a vibrant coin-op business that was making money and keeping us.
I'm old-I grew up with it, but I like your generation too.
I didn't want to screw with that. I did not want to damage that.
There was a door that said, don't even think about entering here. And I was like, I work for this company. I opened the door and walked in. And Al turned around and goes, what are you doing in here? Who the hell are you? Why are you here? And so I said, well, I work for this company. What are you guys doing?
Oh, and found out how to open the door between the two places. What's this? And I'm going, what the hell are you doing? Anyway, we became friends.
I was one of the few people in Coin-Op that spent a lot of time in the consumer group, sort of going back and forth.
I believe that Al Alcorn was sincerely concerned that Coin-Op would be a distraction on his group, which we're doing a very ambitious project on a very tight schedule.
Other companies like Bally all of a sudden took some of their engineers in Coin-Op, and first off, I didn't think these were the right kind of engineers to do consumer. It's a different cost accounting, a different culture. Number two, I didn't want to screw with Coin-Op success.
The arcade games were pretty much in one area, and the consumer people were in another area.
Engineering was upstairs for consumer products. We were downstairs, and I only knew a few of them, you know, and it was because we water skied together.
There really was two separate companies, it felt like, at a time. They had very different development environment. There was no synergy between the two, really, other than that we shared games.
I have been known to joke that the point of Coin-Op games is primarily selling players their own adrenaline. So you want an intense, fast-pitch game, and you'll blame yourself if it's over in 3 minutes, not the game. A person who pays 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks for a cartridge wants to milk that thing. So the games themselves are different.
Every machine is state of the art. It's all new, fresh, challenging stuff, and it's exciting, and it's real design.
Coin-Op gets to use more expensive hardware. They get to use tons and tons of hardware, and they get to refresh their hardware all the time, right? So what's happening is the Atari 2600 chip, the 6502, is a chip you could make in '76. Now Moore's Law is cruising along, doubling computer power every 3 years, but we're using a chip from '76.
And Atari just had to live with the old technology, but fortunately with programmers figuring out new ways to use it.
But for me, there was no rivalry. It was, they made games and they were interesting ideas, and a lot of them we were going to have to try and copy.
What happened, though, was as the VCS really started to make distribution and really started to get out there, and some games really started to catch on, it became apparent that the profit potential from the home games was actually much higher than it was in Coin-Op. So I'll tell you another pecking order sign that goes on, which raises a lot of interesting things, both financially and emotionally, is the idea of royalties. Because one of the big difference between VCS and Coin-Op was Coin-Op people got royalties. They got some kind of bonus participation in the success of their games, which VCS people didn't. That got to be a sore point, not between Coin-Op and engineering, but between VCS and management. And it's like, why aren't we doing
I'll be 30 next month, but I grew up with Genesis and N64.
Hey, I'm about to be 32, so...
Designed by the Coin-Op that was in the arcade, 600 cartridge out of it, it would do really well. They get big bonuses, and we weren't included at all. So there was this kind of like, wait a minute, why are they taking our ideas and we're not included? That was resolved later.
Everybody, you know, identifies as the hero of their own narrative. You know, when you start checking the narratives against each other, that's when you find some interesting differences. And it wasn't, I never felt that coin-op people lorded over us, and I don't think we felt like second-class citizens, but it was well known that coin-op was working on hotter technology, doing cooler stuff, and we were trying to keep up with a technology that was falling farther and farther and farther behind. That's just the reality of it.
They both needed each other, and that's the way most of us looked at it. It was a collaboration, not a competition.
Sears has everything. A dominant force in retail sales in the mid-1970s, the annual Sears Wish Book catalog became the de facto gift guide for millions of American kids. As Atari's premier retail partner, Sears sold Home Pong and the VCS under their own Telegames brand, along with 3 exclusive VCS games. Telegames, huh? And now you can't find Sears anywhere, so... Steeplechase. Jim Huther's home version of Lyle Rain's 1975 arcade game utilized 2 sets of paddle controllers to offer 4-player gaming on the VCS, a rarity in 1980. Players control the speed of their horse with the paddle control, leaping over obstacles as they appear. In a VCS rarity, 4 players can race each other simultaneously in this equestrian title based on an early Atari coin-op. Paddle controllers adjust the speed of each horse, while hurdles on the track inevitably create chaos and sudden reversals in fortune. Uniform hurdles, poor computer skills. The heck is this?
Did you mean 32 or I'll be 32 lol?
I will be 32. I'm guessing I'm the purple one? Did I win? I think I won. Oh, look at all the little ETs riding their horses. Okay. Alternate art. This dynamic illustration by Steve Hendricks for Steeplechase was ultimately not used in the game's box or manual. Stellar Track. A rare text-only game for the VCS, Stellar Track is based on a strategy game that was popular mainframe computer game. Inspired by a popular sci-fi TV show. Players explore quadrants in space, managing their starship's resources while engaging with enemies that they find on their star map. Okay. Based on mainframe computer games that were themselves inspired by the TV series Star Trek. Stellar Trek is a rare text-only game for the VCS. The display shares stats and status updates as players navigate the galaxy and eliminate alien threats under time and fuel constraints. Reading the manual is recommended. Okay, so how do I read the manual? What? Where's the manual then? Okay. Let's see. I kind of get an idea. A photo torpedo, got it. Okay. Okay, Starfleet to Starship Commander, your mission is to destroy 11 alien warships and 18 stardates. Oh wow, I'm so good at this game. Look at that, look at that, look at that. Look at it, look at it, look at it! Anyone that knows how to use a telephone can play this game. Oh, my new rank is Cadet. Cadet, I won! I'm a cadet! Okay, yeah, let's finish that. Okay, that was great. Submarine Commander. Through a periscope view, Submarine Commander players must sink enemy ships while managing limited resources and avoiding enemy depth charges. As the last year's exclusive to appear, Submarine Commander is the rarest of the three, released in 1982. Sears Telegames Video Arcade. A 360-degree periscope view from beneath the waves elevates Submarine Commander's target shooting gameplay. Managing limited fuel and torpedoes increases tension further. The faux 3D perspective is an early example of first-person gameplay on consoles. I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay.
Hello Atari fan here. I'm old hype and I grew up with it, but I like your generation too. I'll be 30 next month, but I grew up with Genesis and N64. Did you mean 32 or I'll be 32 lol?
Okay, when's it over? When is it over? I guess it can be over as soon as you want it to be.
Hello. Hello Atari fan here. I'm old hype and I grew up with it, but I like your generation too.
Alternate art. Despite any crew member's enthusiasm, Robert Hunt's original artwork for Submarine Commander was ultimately not used in the game's final box or manual. Evelyn Seto and the Art of Atari. Graphic designer Evelyn Seto was among the few Atari employees to work in both coin-op and consumer divisions. In this interview, she recalls designing arcade marquees, creating the Atari 2600's retail packaging, and linking the iconic Fuji logo herself. Or inking the iconic Fuji logo itself.
My name is Evelyn Seto. I was a graphic designer at Atari, both in the coin-operated division and the consumer division. I majored in, and when I finished, I went back to LA and helped in my family's business, which was a restaurant business. And when I returned, a friend of mine was working at Opera in Harrington, and she was moving on to another position. And so she had me interview with George Opperman, and I was able to come on board on his staff as a production artist. During that time, which is when I started with George, it was the early 70s, and Silicon Valley was just barely a term that was barely coming up. Nolan Bushnell had his company Sesagy, the gaming company, and he needed to change the name of the company. George Farraco, one of his colleagues, suggested that he speak to George Opperman. So I remember them coming in, and George he took on the assignment of redesigning the logo for Sesagy. And they gave him the name Atari. And so, I remember George doodling on his desk. Yeah, he was just doing little doodles, and from there, he maybe selected a few of them to show Nolan, and they picked the one that they did, which is the one with the Fuji and the Atari. And back then, everything was done by hand. There was no computers. Everything was you had to ink, and you had to spec type and order type, and then paste it all up on a board. So yeah, everything was kind of handcrafted back then. And so yeah, that was my first position, was with George doing production art. And so once they decided on which one they were going to do, I got the assignment of ordering the type and inking the Fuji. So that was my first jobs in working with Atari, was to ink that Fuji. Nolan liked names that started with A's because they were at the front of the alphabet. And because also at the time Pong was our main product, the main product. Now George says he liked the idea of it sweeping because the Pong blip would.
Hello. Hello Atari fan here. I'm old hype and I grew up with it, but I like your generation too. I'll be 30 next month, but I grew up with Genesis and N64. Did you mean 32 or I'll be 32 lol?
So part of it is probably an A, and part of it is the sweep. It's probably all of that could be true. So whatever it was, he picked the hairy type font for the Atari, and I think that's actually stood the test of time as well. Shortly after that, I left George, so that was like in '71, and I left in '72, and so George probably continued working with Atari at the time. I had moved on to another company, and in 1976, George called me and told me he was giving up his company, and he was going to go inside at Atari and become their full-time art director. And he needed an assistant and asked me if I would be interested in doing that. I kind of thought of it as a placeholder, actually. I wasn't sure how long I would do this, and not being that familiar with the company. But anyway, I said, okay, So we were in this little cubby hole. Our two desks were facing each other, And basically we had a drawing board each, and George was doing all the graphics and all the advertising and whatever that was required. George himself was an illustrator as well as a designer, as well as a marketing guy, as well as a copywriter. So he would write all the copy, and he would write all the promotional materials for Atari. So he was an in-house advertising agency. Because I wasn't an illustrator, so the things that didn't require illustration, I would work on some of those, or I would collaborate with one of the illustrators. I might come up with a concept, and then one of the illustrators would design the graphic for me, like in Superbug, or in Golf. Bob Flamani was the artist on those particular pieces, and so, but the concept of how it would, the general concept might be mine, but then I would basically have the illustrator do it, which is not unusual because a lot of graphic designers are not illustrators. I worked on Superbug, I worked on Fire Truck, which was a two-man game. And see, because those graphics I could deal with, they weren't, it didn't require me to illustrate a person or an animal, so I could do graphic things, but I wasn't able to do illustrations. And I did do football, and or the soccer game that was created from that. And then when Atari got into pinball, I worked on a concept for the Wonder Woman pinball game, and that didn't require me to be such an conceptual illustrator because I already had reference material to work with in terms of the comic series. And so eventually we grew to a staff of about eight people. And we had a production artist, but George was still doing all the advertising and the brochures and all the marketing materials for any of the games that came up. And so eventually the company grew, and I stayed there for a couple of years, and ultimately decided that I had an opportunity to go. In 1977, Atari was already working on the consumer video game system, and I'd heard about it but didn't know a whole lot about it. I got asked if I would like to join the consumer group, and so I went ahead and did that, and that's where I felt at home, because then I can focus on graphic design more than illustration. That was a great opportunity for me to really focus on branding. They were starting to introduce some other game systems, and so they wanted to figure out how to market it, and we wanted to take a look at what kind of packaging design do we want to go with, because at the time the VCS system was a black background with little vignettes of game players and parents and screen grabs of some of the video games. And so we decided to take a look at what we could do with it. The video computer system was sort of a generic name, and so we decided to maybe focus on blowing up the name Atari. So we made some mock-ups to do that. Basically, on a product shelf, you've got 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention. We banded the box with Atari with the number of the game system, and we created some packaging and took it to a store to see how it would stand up next to the competition. And at the time, Odyssey was out, Magnavox, Coleco. There were other game systems out there, and they were similar in design to what we had already created. So we took it to a store and took some photographs, and with the other competition in the background, it was clear that the Atari, branding big was the way to go. Yeah, it's like, hello, why didn't we think of that sooner? but obviously somebody didn't think of it before we did. And then at the same time, I think Star Wars came out, and so we thought, well, gee, the space age was coming about, And so maybe we should look at, maybe color isn't the way to go. So they wanted to see what else we could do to make it look more space agey. So we came up with the silver concept of the packaging, and ultimately that's the way we went. At the time, our cartridge boxes were all real colorful and rainbow. The rainbow stripe seemed to be sophisticated enough and give it some color. And so from that, I thought it went underneath the silver band on all the boxes, so it seemed to work for that. And I think that was sort of a nod to the fact that, okay, we still have, the rainbow was sort of a nod to all the color boxes. The Fuji's always stayed there, and I think the typefaces always stayed there. Although some people have played around with the typeface a little bit, but, you know, you can't change it. It looks, it's a classic.
There you have it, Evelyn Seto and the Art of Atari. Evelyn Seto, then Evelyn Lim, in Atari's art department circa late 1970s. She looks so young in this picture here. That's so cool that she was able to work on all that. That's extraordinary. 1977, a team effort. Evelyn Seto, George Opperman, and Bob Flemett review backglass artwork for the 1977 Atari pinball machine, Airborne Avenger. He was moving his hand in the picture, or they changed it later, I don't know. At work at Atari, Evelyn Seto's early 1980s workspace at Atari was decorated with some of her package designs. Wait, and that was 1970, so this is like 10 years later. Her sitting next to her package designs. That's such a cool, fun job, come up with package designs. Box art concepts. One concept Atari explored for its retail redesign included a grid design, and Evelyn created concept art for matching cartridge boxes. The grid concept was ultimately employed on a handful of family-friendly 2600 titles late in the console's life. That's gotta be, what, Circus Atari? Excuse me. Yeah, Circus Atari, I think, was a game that my mom played growing up. (1976) Alternate Atari logos. Atari's art department, led by George Opperman, created several options for the Atari logo before landing on the now iconic Fuji logo. Some of these concepts built upon the company's earlier name, Syzygy Engineering. (1981) The Atari 3200, Evelyn Seto's design concepts for a refreshed Atari 2600 retail box, as well as the never-issued 3200 and the 3600 Super System, which became the Atari 5200. So the 3200 never came out, and the 3600 ended up being released as the 5200. I see. Packaging. In 1982, Evelyn Seto designed the silver packaging for the Atari 2600 and 5200, creating a bold and simple visual distinction between Atari's offerings on store shelves. Oh, there's carrying cases for it? See, that's what happens when you don't put a handle on your console. This is why Nintendo put a handle on the GameCube, so you would not have to buy a carrying case for it. A trackball controller. 1983, voice controller boxes. A co-creation with toy manufacturer Milton Bradley, the Atari 2600 voice controller never materialized, but Evelyn conceptualized boxes for two of its planned titles, Star Raiders and Baseball. The Atari voice controller, 2600 Star Raiders, and Baseball. Interesting. A bridge from arcade to home for the VCS. What's more, it licensed up coin-op competitors like Space Invaders, Defender, and Berserk as exclusive offerings for its own home machines, helping Atari maintain market leadership for years. Berserk. As pinball's popularity waned, manufacturers like Bally, Gottlieb, and Stern expanded their scope to offer video arcade games as well. Stern Electronics' Berserk, which trapped players in endless mazes of killer robots, became the company's biggest video hit. Berserk featured some of the first synthesized speech heard in arcades, from enemy robots crowing, "Got the humanoid, got the intruder," to taunting losing players with "Chicken, fight like a robot." As a lone human in a maze of killer androids, the player is kept in a state of tension by the claustrophobia-inducing levels, while procedurally generated mazes keep every game fresh. Okay. It's a maze, huh? What? Chicken, fight like... Robot, what?
Chicken, fight like a robot. Chicken, fight like a robot. Chicken, fight like a robot. Destroy the chicken. Chicken, fight like a robot. Kill the humanoid. Chicken, fight like a robot.
See, this is the future that Elon Musk envisions for all of us right here. With that new humanoid robot that they're saying everyone's going to have in their homes. I forget what it's called. What? I just vaporized when I touched the wall. What? What happened?
Intruder alert. Intruder alert. Chicken, fight like a robot.
Oh, am I supposed to get them to run into the walls? Or what?
Intruder alert. Intruder alert. Get the humanoid. Chicken, fight.
Was that a smiley face that was coming through the wall? What just happened there?
Intruder alert. Intruder alert.
I want to get the bouncing smiley face. No, I don't. I don't want the bouncing smiley face. Okay, the smiley face killed me. I just got killed by the Walmart smiley face. And now all the robots are red, and I don't know why. Well, I definitely know that now. ABZ. Yeah, now I know my ABZs. Okay. Nope, nope, nope. Promotional flyer. Berserk's robotic voice yelling "Intruder alert" and "Coin detected in pocket" in arcades taunted passing players. Berserk's promotional flyer notes that the game contains 30 phrases and 64,000 randomly generated mazes. Stern goes berserk. The Battles of Berserk. From an arcade hit to a fantastic home port, Berserk's legacy is filled with danger, action, and at least one disturbing urban legend. Uh-oh. Everyone's got their disturbing stories.
The main theme of
Berserk, as I understand it, and as I've always understood it, is basically you're one of the last humans trying to escape this prison inhabited by robots. Because there's this character in the game called Evil Otto, and he bounces at you with this smiley face, but it's so sinister because all he's really trying to do is just pulverize you to like nothing, and he comes at you so aggressively. Even back in the day, the story got around really fast that somebody died playing Berserk.
The rumblings of rumors when it got out, like, oh my gosh, someone died while playing Berserk. They must have, I don't know if the game shot back at them, I don't know what happened.
And I think that added to the mystique of the game, because could this game kill you? But in reality, as far as I understand, it was somebody who actually
use right stick to shoot.
happened to be playing
Oh.
Berserk when an episode occurred, but that, of course, got embellished to this game will kill you.
I remember Berserk coming out for the 2600, and I was very.
I did not realize I could shoot.
Characters were very simple, but moved exactly like the arcade. The gameplay was great. I thought it was one of the great Atari cartridges, up there with Space Invaders in that time frame of arcade ports.
One of my favorite games on the 2600 happened to be Berserk. I thought it was really well produced. It didn't look like other Atari games really flickered a lot. The characters were really solid, everything looked great, and it was a really great representation of the arcade game.
Yeah, the gameplay was well tweaked, which is not given the credibility that it should. The amount of tweaking that the gameplay requires.
The amount of tweaking.
A truly great game it's unappreciated.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm unappreciated.
I was learning, or basically teaching myself how to program the Atari 2600 and synthesize voice on the 2600. And so that kind of occurred to me that it would be really cool to take that approach and that concept and apply it to Berserk to have the perfect version of Berserk for the Atari 2600. That set in motion my desire to just like pursue relentlessly putting voice into 2600 Berserk. And my understanding of the arcade game is there's a specific speech synthesis chip that was used for the game. And to compare that to the 2600, there's no such thing on the 2600. And so in order to get speech to even sound similar to that chip, you have to apply all of Atari 2600's resources to it. So in order to get the sample to play back fast enough, you have to do things like don't display the screen. So the screen goes black so you can get a cleaner and more audible sound out of the processor, the sound processor. Some of the changes that I had applied to the game early on were mostly palette related and some graphical changes. Also added a title screen. I always felt that later Atari 2600 games that had title screens were really cool, so I wanted to feel like those. But ultimately that was where my work ended. But then the community hopped in after that release, and Dennis DeBro particularly found out by disassembling the game that there was actually code for the robots to shoot diagonally like in the arcade game. I found it fascinating that after I dabbled a little bit with Berserk, to watch other people go in and find all these other things within the source code that I missed completely, and start to apply that to like what would become ultimately Berserk Voice Enhanced.
So fascinating. Let's see. Death by Berserk. On April 3rd, 1982, 18-year-old Peter Bukowski played Berserk at Fire Tuck's Game Room in Calumet City, Illinois, then collapsed and died shortly thereafter. It was an 18-year-old? Coroners determined an undiagnosed heart condition was to blame for his passing, not Evil Otto. But facts cannot stop urban legends. That's so tragic. Frenzy. The sequel to Berserk, Frenzy delivers new enemies and an interesting change to the terrain. Some walls can be destroyed, while other walls ricochet shots, meaning the player can actually shoot themselves. Oh, okay, I can actually shoot myself. That's what I want. The sequel to Berserk offers more panic and paranoia as human players struggle to survive in a never-ending labyrinth of deadly robots and electrified walls. To innovate for the sequel, some of those walls reflect the player's shots, while others can be partially destroyed, creating new escape routes. Stern. Frenzy. gonna go destroy all these robots. Oh, I got a bonus for killing myself. Oh my god. I like how they decided to include Stalfos and Octoroks in this one. Can I shoot the smiley face? And I shot myself again. Trying to shoot the smiley face. Okay. Well, that's great. No! Promotional flyer. Frenzy's flyer notes that while Evil Otto is still indestructible in the sequel to Berserk, 3 bullets will stun him, giving the player a chance to escape. That's a lot of Stern games. Okay. Berserk, bringing arcade hits home, became a critical element of Atari's VCS success. Stern's arcade hit, Berserk, programmed for the home by Dan Hitchens, became one of the console's most visually accurate translations. While the 2600 version of Berserk lacks the famous speech samples of its arcade inspiration, its programmer...
Invisible happy face, I mean, what the hell?
Right? This programmer, Dan Hitchens, captured the look and feel of the coin-op exceptionally well. Unlike in the arcade version, players can actually destroy the bouncing smiley face Evil Otto in certain modes. No evil motto.
$2,600 version, use X to shoot.
Thanks for pointing that out. I was going to try using the control stick again. I mean, we gotta have Evil Otto, right? I imagine that's what Satan looks like, is a bouncing smiley face. Okay. Oh no! Wait, oh, great, I just walked into the wall. Do they turn into evil smiley faces? Yeah, they turn into smiley faces when I shoot them. Oh my god! Did I just die? Okay, yeah, I did. Okay.
Choom choom.
Cover art! Hiro Kimura created this illustration that would serve as the Atari 2600 box art. Original artwork. Artist Hiro Kimura created this ominous scene of Evil Otto commanding an army of relentless robots. It was used inside the Berserk instruction manual. Welcome to Maison. This ad from Atari Age magazine promoting Berserk's home release notes that the game's action takes place on the planet Maison, where pulse-pounding danger waits around every corner. We have all the terrific Atari cartridges. Order now. Playing the angles. Among the excellent reader-submitted strategies for Berserk in this page from Atari Age, Art Collins notes that Evil Otto cannot catch players if they run away diagonally. I see. Berserk Voice Enhanced. Determined to make the 2600 version of Berserk even more arcade accurate, programmer Mike Mika added speech to the game while also adjusting the colors to better match the coin-op. Originally released in 2002, the version presented here is Mike's final revision.
Dancers of Doom, disco dancing into the apocalypse.
Hey, that's my kind of apocalypse right there. So this version was released in 2002, believe it or not. Driven by a desire to more accurately replicate Berserk's robot blasting presentation from the arcade, Dennis Debro and Mike Miko's enhanced edition includes speech, more arcade-accurate colors, enemies that shoot diagonally, and a few squash bugs for good measure. The left difficulty switch toggles voice on and off. So the difficulty, it becomes more difficult if you have the voice on? What? We need the evil Otto. We need him. Yeah, you can see the distorted smiley faces in the robots as they die. That's so sad. It's so tragic. What? Do they speak in another language this time? Because I did not understand anything they just said. Oh no! No! Okay, if everyone just, like, stops trying to say everything at once. And I died. Trying to get away from the bouncing, smiling Satan. Oh, I got it! No! Very neat. Berserk, unlike its 2600 counterpart, the Atari 5200 version of Berserk retained the arcade's voice catchphrases, making this the first 5200 game to offer speech synthesis in 1983. With more powerful hardware, the 5200 version of Berserk was able to retain the speech synthesis of its coin-op counterpart. The gameplay remains relentless as human players blast robots in single-screen mazes only to escape into another room filled with even deadlier enemies. Well, don't that sound fun? Let's get into this here.
It takes place in the same world as Wizard of War.
That was just straight up demonic. What is happening? Oh my goodness. Okay. Original artwork. The original box art for Berserk on Atari 5200 created by Hiro Kimura. Atari Video Cube. A handful of Atari 2600 games were only offered as mail-order titles through the Atari Club. The first Atari Video Cube began as an unlicensed interpretation of the 1980s puzzle phenomenon Rubik's Cube, but its mechanics ultimately differed. AVC's limited availability makes it a rare prize among modern collectors. It's a video Rubik's Cube on a 2600, really? Inspired by the puzzle craze of the early 1980s, Atari Video Cube challenges players to organize the colors on a rotatable cube through their on-screen avatar, Hubie, the Cube Master. Originally an exclusive offered to members of the Atari Club, this rare game was later reissued with the official Rubik's Cube license.
Versions of Video Cube.
Oh no.
Pointing up.
Normal, scored on moves. Let's see. Oh my god, that was loud. I don't know how to work this thing. Okay, now I'm actually doing something. What is going on? Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. That is beyond me. Okay. This artwork used for the main box art for both the Atari Video Cube and the Rubik's Cube reissue takes a literal approach to illustrating the gameplay. Puzzles on the Brain, a cerebral but unused illustration for Rubik's Cube created by Burl Dickey. Okay, yeah.
Cube, unscramble it. Pick up a color, switch it with another square. Not like rotating the layers on actual cubes.
Oh, okay. It's a whole new cube. It will be at least 6 months before Atari Video Cube is sold in any stores, notes this Atari Club ad. The game was re-released in 1984, retitled with the official Rubik's Cube license. Only from the Atari Club is a whole new cube. Atari Video Club, or Atari Video Cube, a terrific new video twist to a classic puzzle. Start with 9 brightly colored squares on each side of the cube in a totally mixed up pattern. Then guide your on-screen character from square to square and pick... I lost myself. From square to square and cube, face to cube face, picking up colors and placing them where you think they belong. Each time you reach the edge of the cube, it rotates before your eyes. There are 18 different variations to play in the Atari Video Cube Challenge. Choose scoring based on speed or on total number of moves. Play slow and steady or fast and furious. If you're really good, try a perplexing invisible cube. Or if you're stuck, set it for self-play and watch the cube solve itself. Okay. Puzzle Power. This Atari Age feature takes a holistic view on the Rubik's Cube craze, offering an academic look at puzzles throughout the ages before ending with a preview of the upcoming Atari Video Cube. The coming of the cubes. Very nice. After the NES, when the Nintendo Entertainment System resuscitated the console market in the mid-80s, Atari offered the 7800 but continued delivering fresh software to 2600 owners as well. However, as where many of these later 2600 titles have remained underappreciated for years. Desert Falcon, an isometric shooter with an Egyptian theme, Desert Falcon appeared on the Atari 2600, 7800, and XE home computer systems. Bob Polaro, who had programmed the VCS version of Defender, also handled this 2600 version. Dare to Steal the Pharaoh's Jewels. This arcade-style flight shooter pits would-be treasure hunters against thematically ancient Egyptian guardians such as vultures and scarabs. While it cannot compare visually to the 7800 version, Desert Falcon 2600 still delivers the core gameplay. Keep an eye on your bird's shadow to gauge your height. No! No!
Those red box games would later appear at Big Lots for pennies on the original prices as well as the first dollar stores. I collected a big.
Oh wow, yeah, I would have done the same thing. That's like when Blu-rays started to become more obsolete to streaming services. I would go down to the Dollar Tree and they just had a shelf packed with Blu-rays. You could get, I think they even had them on sale at the Dollar Tree. You could get Blu-rays for 50 cents. And I got some pretty good ones too, like Dinner for Schmucks. And I got the Dragon Age anime movie. I think I got each for like 50 cents. I got some scary movies too, like the Poltergeist remake, and then I got La Llorona. I got these Blu-rays all for like 50 cents a piece, and it's like, you cannot beat that. Key art. This artwork was used for the cover image for the 2600, 7800, and Atari XE versions of Desert Falcon. Okay, nice. Double Dunk. Sports remained an important genre for Atari even after the Real Sports brand was no longer in use. Double Dunk's 2-on-2 half-court presentation of basketball features relatively sophisticated elements such as play calling and three-point shots. Released in 1989, here is Double Dunk. One of the final few games produced for the 2600, 1989's Double Dunk represents a dramatic visual upgrade from the original basketball game released in 1978 as a 2-on-2 half-court contest with true-to-life details like play calling, foul detection, shot clock violations, and 3-second lane violations. Many of these options can be toggled off if the player is not looking for a realistic simulation. Okay. Okay, can we start? No? Okay, here we go. So you're doing that. The heck? Okay. Ow, that is hurting my ears. Will you stop it? I have no idea what I'm doing, and this is... Okay, that is annoying. Okay, we're gonna stop. Super Football. Super Football can be seen as something of a missing link for the genre, as its isometric behind-the-team view would become the default for the console football games that followed in the 1990s. This fresh take was programmed by Doug Neubauer of Star Raiders fame. Very nice. Very, very nice. I'm going to play this. Developed by Star Raiders programmer Doug Neubauer, Super Football is a particularly impressive example of what developers could achieve after a decade of 2600 development. The smooth, sprite animations and the player's perspective down the scrolling gridiron offered a clear direction to sports game developers of the 16-bit era. One player novice, 3 minutes per quarter. Okay, yeah, sure. Oh, what the heck? What did I get myself into? Okay, which one am I? Who am I?
Hello. Video cube was amazing. Choose a cube, unscramble it. Pick up a color, switch it with another square. Not like rotating the layers on actual cubes. Those red box games would later appear in big lots for pennies on the original prices as well as the first dollar stores. I collected a big. Double Dunk was obviously inspired by Electronic Arts One-on-One with Dr. J and Larry Bird.
I was inspired by Electronic Arts had one out around the same time. I imagine Electronic Arts had a much better looking basketball game. And I have no idea what I'm doing with that. Off the Wall revisited Atari's classic Brick Breaker gameplay, adding human characters and power-ups. This Atari 2600 title bears no relation to Atari Games' arcade game of the same name, which appeared 2 years later. Really? The basic formula of Breakout was still bearing fruit as late as 1989 with this Brick Breaker. Off the Wall adds 5 token power-ups as well as animated characters. The player controls Lou, who must smash through the wall of bricks and hit the dragon at the top of the screen. Okay, Off the Wall. So, how do I shoot the darn thing? Okay. And my head came off. Oh, that's great.
Off the Wall takes nods from Arkanoid.
No! I'm just a peasant. No. Okay, we gonna start? And I died. Okay, that was great. Yes, I love it. Look at it go. No! Get back up there! No, my head! No! I'm on my last leg. Oh, I got it twice. Look at me go. Oh, I got it again. Oh no, and I died. Game over. Hey, that was actually pretty fun. I like that. His paper sculpture became the cover art for Off the Walls retail box. Unfortunately, the artist is unknown. Oh no! It's terrible. Moto Rodeo. Offering a split-screen two-player monster truck race, Moto Rodeo shows how far 2600 software development had come after 12 years. Created by Steve DeFrisco for the Nolan Bushnell-founded Ixion, it's one of the last cartridges released for the Atari 2600. Monster trucks come out to play in this two-player split-screen racer, released in 1990 as one of the Atari 2600's final games. Moto Rodeo offers deceptively sophisticated gameplay as players navigate through obstacles like mud pits and ramps. Points are awarded for crushing cars, demolishing walls, and landing from huge ramp jumps with skillful accuracy. Developed by Ixion, a company founded by Nolan Bushnell after he left Atari. Medium? Okay. Okay, so I jump like that. Okay. Okay, I cannot figure out how to play that. Okay. That is too difficult. Axlon. Thank you. Oh, I was reading it as an I. Okay. I kept seeing an I for some reason. It's Axlon. Thank you for that. From players to creators, for some Atari sours, merely collecting the games they grew up with isn't enough. With curiosity and passion, a supportive homebrew community has kept Atari's flame burning through some of the company's less active years.
So I started collecting on the 2600 when I was working Looking Glass in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with Rex Bradford, who had actually worked for Activision and Parker Brothers back in the day. And that inspired me. It's like, I should go pick up a 2600 and then start buying all those games I could never afford as a kid.
So I started looking on eBay to regain my old 2600 library, whatever. And in my searching, I found the Stella List. The Stella List was a collection of programmers that were interested in programming the VCS.
I think everybody who got into homebrew pretty early in the 2600 was a member of the Stella List, and that's where everybody shared their findings on the 2600. And of course, the original developer documentation that was at Atari was scanned and provided through the list.
Axlon also made memory upgrades for Atari 800 and 400 computers.
Oh, awesome.
Demos and all stuff kind of passed through the Stella mailing list.
That was where all the activity was for development for a long time before form.
So they're kind of like for Atari what Argonaut was for Nintendo.
The team on the Stella List were there to help me get past my problems.
And it was almost all just technical discussion on how to develop for the Atari 2600. Picking apart the machine and learning, the internals, because the 2600 is a very arcane machine and difficult to develop for.
It feels like it took me a year just to understand how to get playfield graphics on the screen.
And there's always new people coming into the hobby wanting to learn how to program. So yeah, it's been amazing to watch, and there's just so much development, hardware and software, on all these platforms on Atari Age.
In my mind, 2600 programming is as raw as it gets. It kind of shows people all your flaws, and so I'm really nervous about sharing things on the Atari Age forums. I have in the past, and I've received some great feedback, But ultimately, at the end of the day, for me, I feel so inadequate when I post things there because there's so many smart people. People who are way smarter than me, doing just incredible things, and I always feel like what I'm posting is just like a friend of mine used to say, it feels baby school.
But on the Atari Age forum, they have a 2600 programmer forum that you can go to. Yeah, anyone is willing to just jump in and help.
There's a number of really talented programmers still doing wonders on the 2600.
That part of the Stellar list lives on the Atari Age. Absolutely.
When we started Atari Age, back in 2000, we were working on 2000, opened it in 2001. Atari really wasn't paying attention to the, this growing community of people who were basically celebrating the brand.
I don't think there was any time during those years when homebrew really started to take off for the Atari consoles that Atari at that time felt in any way threatened.
I don't think they knew we existed. and I don't think they cared. I just don't think they cared.
I think most of the time they just kind of ignored it.
But Adventure 2, when it started out, was not endorsed by Atari in any way. And when they got wind of it, it came very close to shutting the project down. But they were able to work together, and now it is an IP that is approved by Atari, and now the community they can play it. I mean, it was a great piece of work.
At some point, you realize, well, Atari Age, costs money to run. It's running on like a dedicated server with the forum and the games database. We can, instead of having ads on the website, we can just start publishing games ourselves. So it just went really slowly first, and one of the first games was Mike Micah's Berserk voice enhanced.
And ultimately, it was the information I gathered from shared resources in the homebrew community that led me to adapt Berserk's voice.
And from there, it just kind of blossomed, and a small group of home developers, including Thomas Jens, allowed me to start publishing their games in the Atari Age store.
Kurt Bendel was working with Atari and did the first flashback. It wasn't exactly what he envisioned, but it was the starting point, and that was his whole plan, as I understand it. It's like, let me get in the door with this, and then I can produce what I wanted. That was the flashback too. In doing that and contracting with Atari, Kurt reached out to homebrew developers because he wanted to showcase, hey, not only do you have these classics here, but you have people that are still programming for this unit, and he wanted to show that. I was one of the homebrew developers that he reached out to. Honored that he reached out to me like that.
I had the fortune of knowing Kurt Vendel years and years ago. I met him at this trade show. Well, it was like a fan show called World of Atari, and it was in '98, I believe. And it was pretty clear he knew a lot about Atari. And not only that, he had a lot of ephemera from the old Atari days. And so we became fast friends. And a lot of the early Digital Eclipse projects that we worked on, Kurt helped us out. And he found the information we needed. He helped us figure out how things worked. He was an incredible hardware guy, incredible software guy. And he was so hell-bent on getting the story right. And so I give a lot of credit to Kurt for paving the way, for giving people the understanding of like where the real heroes were in those old days at Atari.
Adventure 2. Originally a homebrew sequel for the Atari 5200, Kurt Vendel created a 2600 version of Adventure 2 for the Flashback 2 in 2005. While the graphics remain comfortably familiar, the player's realm expands to the neighboring kingdoms of fire and ice to create a longer, more difficult quest. Once again, you must dodge deadly dragons, retrieve the enchanted chalice, and return it to the castle. But this time you'll have to explore...
Vendel passed away a few years ago. He was developing the 7800 expansion unit.
Oh no. That is unfortunate. Once again, you must dodge deadly dragons, retrieve the enchanted chalice, and return it to the castle. But this time, you'll have to explore the deadly Fire and Ice Kingdoms. This official sequel to the Atari 2600 Classic was created by Kurt Vendel in 2005 for the Atari Flashback 2 plug-and-play gaming console, incorporating elements from the Atari 5200 homebrew game by Ron Lloyd. Okay, let's see. Ah! Okay. Nothing to do down here. Okay, there's Lord Jabu Jabu. There was a bridge moving down here. Where'd it go? Let's take the key. And it took my key. Okay, well, you know what? I'll just use this bridge. Okay, fine, I'll take the key. You gotta make up your mind, jeez. Alright, let me in. There we go. Oh, there's another key. What does this one do? No! Wait, I'm carrying the bat, carrying the bridge? Okay. Well, that works for me. Okay, well, we're just gonna carry the dragon with us instead. That works. There's 2 giant keys here. This is where I needed to go. But where's my key? I got eaten! No! Return to Haunted House. While this homebrew entry from Anthony Wong is clearly inspired by the 2600 game from 1982, on a technical level, it's actually a modification.
Show Clarence has an Atari nod with an episode showing Dragon's Cusp on the plaything.
Oh, that's pretty neat. So this is actually a modification of Adventure's programming code. The result is an intriguing blend of both games as players explore dark spaces and collect parts of a shattered urn within a linear quest structure. Return to Haunted House. And that's really cool, they put homebrews on here. Homebrew programmer Anthony Wong created this game in 2005 to continue the legacy of the original Haunted House. Players must explore the ghost-riddled mansion of Zachary Graves only by finding Graves' skull and returning it to its underground crypt will the town of Spirit Bay be freed from its supernatural curse. There's a small house, a large house with random placement. Let's do the small house. Okay. So we got the shovel here. It is with Adventures Code. Haunted house you played as Eyes. Oh, there's a ghost. I got eaten by the ghost, okay. It's the Oogie Boogie Man. Where's am I going? I have no clue. Oh, what is that? That's a table. Okay. Nice. There's a table right there. You can't go through any of these doors. This is so confusing. And there's a line right there that... Okay, no. Stay back. Back, 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 back. Okay, well, you know what? I tried. Searching for prototypes. For various business and creative reasons, some games that were once destined for store shelves simply disappear, and TED. In TED? Simply disappear in TED? What does in TED even mean? Hang on. Is in TED even a word? Gonna look this up. In TED. What is the... International Education Advantage. In TED. Offers strategic recruitment marketing to help you attract, recruit, orient, and retain students. Okay, whatever. So they simply disappear in TED. When prototypes of unreleased games surface, bands like Atari Age's Albert Yaruso mobilize to preserve these often incomplete creative expressions and sometimes give them a second chance at success.
A lot of games were in development at Atari when the market crashed in '94, and a lot of them were done, or very close to being done, and not just for the 2600, but also the 5200. A lot of these prototypes are being discovered during this time period, and there were various people who were...
Typo hyphen instead.
Oh, okay.
Hey, what if Atari published it? What if Fox published this game? What would it look like? And you'd have a line of people at the Classic Indie Expo on Saturday or Sunday to get their copy of the game, and they would sell out back then. And, you know, they're $50, $60 a piece, but, you know, they looked great. They looked like this is what real sports basketball never released, but, you know, there's a really nice community-produced reproduction of it. They come from all over. Sometimes they come from the original developers who were working at Atari, took copies of those with them, thankfully, before they were thrown out. And they were nice enough to they either sell them or loan them out so people can actually dump them and then, you know, preserve them indefinitely. And then Atari sent out a lot of lab loaner carts, basically like cartridges of games that were going to be released, like sending them to magazines in advance. Especially magazines back then had a really long lead time of months, so you'd want to get those games to the magazines so they could test them and then have an article ready, you know, by the time the game comes out. So that's where a lot of the cartridges come from. You know, they had a unique lab loaner label, you know, returned to somebody at Atari with the name handwritten on the label. I'm sure you've seen them. Even now, you know, there's still prototypes being unearthed, which is just remarkable. That so long, you know, after all this time has passed, we're still finding new games that either we never knew about or knew about and just didn't think existed. But you know, people are finding them still.
Interesting. On loan from the lab. Erasable, programmable lab loaner cartridges were used by Atari's engineering team to test games in development. EPROMs like this one were often loaned out to members of the press for preview or review coverage. Aquaventure. Aquaventure's origins are murky. There's no official Atari record of the undersea action game, but the prototype has been traced back to 1983. Likely a victim of the game industry crash, it wouldn't see an official release until 2005 and was only issued on a cartridge by Atari in 2023. In this rare 1983 prototype, you must dive to the bottom of the ocean floor to collect treasure while dodging dangerous sea creatures and managing your oxygen supply. A victim of the 1983 industry crash, Aquaventure was completed but left unpublished for years. Mysteriously, it does not appear in Atari internal documents of the era. Atari officially released it on a 2600 cartridge in 2022. Oh, this one's actually pretty fun. Oh, is that a mermaid? Is that a mermaid? No! But yeah, I feel like the 2600 for Atari is kind of like the Genesis for Sega. It feels like they just don't want to let it go, like, ever. They had all these new consoles, and they kept focusing too much on the 2600, and I feel Sega kind of does the same thing. It's like you always see this hyperfixation on Genesis games, and they don't ever really focus on, like, later stuff. Every time there's a collection, it's another Sega Genesis collection. Where's my Sega Master System collection? Where's my Sega Saturn collection? Where's the Dreamcast collection? It's always the Sega Genesis collection, over and over and over and over again. Okay, I can, like, not see myself on that screen. It was like the same color as me, almost. Wait, the walls kill me? What? Okay, I think we get the point with this game. That's pretty cool. Under the Sea. Close inspection of the Aquaventure artwork seen here on a poster included with the 2023 limited edition suggests the game's underwater explorer is female. How does it suggest that? Okay.
If you want to go to Sega's roots. SG-1000.
Oh yeah, that was the one that was only released in Japan. Although I thought before that they did like stuff for military. They had like coin and slot machines that they distributed to different military bases or something like that. Or is that what I'm thinking of? I don't know. I know they had like some coin machines that were similar to like, I don't know if it's like casinos or what. Save Mary. The puzzle genre is underrepresented on the 2600, but Save Mary, originally developed by Todd Fry for Axlon in 1989, could have helped fill that void. The platform stacking rescue game remained unissued until Atari's flashback to console in 2005. A limited edition physical cartridge of Save Mary quickly sold out in 2023. Mary is unfortunately stranded at the bottom of a canyon that's filling with water. It's up to you to build her a platform high enough for you to reach her with your crane and pull her to safety. Designed by Todd Fry, the creator of Sword Quest in 1990, this action... Sword Quest, no, it's by the creator of Sword Quest? Okay, this should never have been released. If it's anything like Sword Quest, it should not have been released. It's like, oh my god, Sword Quest was the absolute worst. It was the most, sorry, I'm going to say it was the most ass Atari game there ever was. I'm sorry. Sword Quest, no. In 1990, this action puzzle game was not officially released until it appeared on the Atari Flashback 2 plug-and-play console in 2005. Hopefully nothing like Sword Quest. Okay, let's see. Are we just going to play Save Mary? Oh, okay. So what are we doing here? We grabbing these boxes or what? Okay. No. Okay, wait. Oh, okay. Okay. I did that. I think I did that. Okay, we got the, okay. And we what? Just drop it on her head or what? I guess if we want to die. Okay. No! Ooh, there's a picnic basket. I want that. Hey, Mary, have a picnic basket. It disappeared in the sky, but you're welcome. No!
We want Sword Quest Air World.
Okay, well, Sword Quest Air World is actually in this collection, so... And I gotta say, Air World was actually better than the rest of them. Oh, here's a little basket for you. And it disappeared in the sky again, but I know you'll appreciate it. Okay. Okay, Mary, I'm working on it. Jeez. Just quit yelling at me. Okay, okay, you're gonna jump over it? Okay. Here, do some math. Okay. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Alright, now you can climb up there. Right on, right on. There we go. Hey, I'm doing the best I can, okay? Don't be ungrateful. Okay, this is much better than Sword Quest. Much, much better. Why did she just jumped off? She committed suicide. Okay. Well, that was... I'm gonna have PTSD from that. Okay, let's see. Cover artwork with a low angle on the main character. Save Mary's box art adds even more drama to the game's goal. For the love of Atari, what makes Atari fans so passionate? People who have helped preserve and extend Atari's legacy discuss the love that lies beyond mere nostalgia. Okay, I'm gonna play it.
When you think of the 80s and video games, Atari is the company that comes to mind. And because those people grew up with, there's a lot of nostalgia today still for the brand. And I think that's the main reason why you see people so passionate about Atari.
When we do our best, video games are an art form. What we're doing doesn't just distract people or pass the time. We leave them with something.
The brand was so iconic for so long that it feels like it was a part of their life, and that it felt like a part of their identity. So I think whenever Atari over the years has done something against those core values of what people have brought to Atari and how they feel they fit with Atari, that's why you'd see a lot of vocal retaliation to what Atari was doing, because it was so personal to them.
And Atari did a great job with marketing. They had a lot of the arcade hits, like Pac-Man and Defender, and just tons of arcade games that people wanted to play at home. And they just did a great job with marketing, getting the systems out there, and that's what people remember from those early days.
For me, it is the excitement that I had as a young teenager having the VCS. That excitement is still there for me. You've heard this before. You never forget your first love. that would be the VCS.
I think video games are proving to be more and more like the music business. Whatever you heard at certain points in your life of music, that's the soundtrack for your life. And when you hear those songs when you were a kid or when you were a teen or when you were in college, it brings back those memories and you're attached to that time and to that version of yourself. And the music takes you back there.
I think for a lot of people, it was the very first system that they had, especially for the 2600. And even then, the Pong systems that came before that, and Atari was active in arcades as well. I think the combination of the home consoles, arcades, and then computers, that kind of trifecta really kept Atari in everyone's mind. Versus the other companies only had like a console, home console, and didn't do the other things.
I took my 8-bit 800XL with me to college, and that's what I wrote my reports on. Now, granted, everybody in the dorm down the hall heard it pecking on the the 1027, but hey, I did my reports on it.
There were people who dedicated their lives to just making sure that an Atari 800 could stay working, and they would sell parts as cheap as they could to people to keep their machines working. And so for, I'd say, like 3 decades, basically you've had all these kind of like unknown people working behind the scenes just to keep Atari alive.
Millions of people grew up with these consoles. They enjoyed them. Their first interaction with video games for a lot of people, and computers. And and Atari made a ton of great arcade games as well that are very memorable. So again, I think all of that just helped to keep the brand alive, even when Atari wasn't very active.
Ultimately, I think Atari, the name, was what survived, but not Atari, the game company. It was a different game company. It was really just Atari by name. And so we were left with a huge community of people who grew up with the Atari. It was a very personal thing for them that felt like they were being abandoned by the namesake in some ways. And so they were the ones who were the torchbearers. These are people who kept Atari alive.
I was in Europe, in Germany, and I was waiting for some friends, and all of a sudden this person comes walking by in a bright green, Kelly green shirt with a white Atari across it. And then later on, I was at the Gap store at Christmas time, and I saw a multicolored Atari T-shirt for children, and I said, well, I kind of chuckled to myself, and I said, Jesus, Atari is just not going to go away. And then, of course, I had to buy the shirt for my great-nephew, so.
Futuristic since forever. Even as gaming moves forever into the future, Atari and its fans will never forget its past. Here's to the artists, programmers, and players who have contributed to Atari's legacy. There we have it, folks. That was the wider world of Atari. When we come back, we're going to be diving into the first console war. When a television challenged the Atari 2600's dominance, their battle set the stage for every historic gaming rivalry that followed. Whose side are you on? The first console war in 1976. What if the company behind the Intellivision also created cartridges for the Atari 2600? The answer was M Network. And the story the story starts in the late 1970s. Alright, so we're going to be going down this timeline. We're going to be going over the first console war. Atari versus Intellivision. This is pretty much the end of this segment. I will say, since this is the last Atari timeline that we are going to be going over before moving on to something else. Throughout this collection, they mentioned Pac-Man many times and how great it was, because they started in arcades. And Pac-Man was just, another one of those things that really took off. Once we are through with this console war timeline, when we start streaming again, we're going to be going through the Pac-Man Museum, and we're going to be going through Pac-Man games. If we can, I think I might try to look at some Namco stuff as well, because I know back when I played on PS1, there was a Pac-Man museum. Was it Pac-Man Museum or just Namco Museum on PS1? Anyway, I'll have to see what they have for PS5, but we're definitely doing Pac-Man next. And then it's either going to be like more Namco, or we're going to be starting Mega Man, and we're going to go through like the entire first series of Mega Man, because not a lot of people had the chance to play it, but Mega Man also has an arcade game, which is the Mega Man Power Battles, and we're going to play through that. And then from there, I'm thinking we're going to move on to maybe something like Castlevania. I want to kind of go through more like Super Nintendo era, because I don't think there's a lot more to really cover. NES that I can play on PS5, but I know Mega Man was a really big deal on the NES. And we can play through all the original NES games right here on PS5, so that's what we're going to do. And we're going to kind of move on to more Super Nintendo games before we finally move on to like the Sega Genesis collection. Before we hit Sega Genesis collection, though, we are going to go through the Blizzard arcade, and we're going to go through some of Blizzard's early Super Nintendo games like the Lost Vikings, and we're going to hit up Sega Genesis collection, and then we're going to be going through the Sonic Origins collection, because those ports of the Genesis games are honestly a little more put together than the Sega Genesis collection. We'll kind of bounce back and forth because there's some Sonic games in the Genesis collection that are not available in the Sonic Origins collection. And there's a lot of really good games in the Sega Genesis collection, like Toe Jam and Earl and was it Panic on Funkatron? There's some really good ones in there. And ultimately, we're going to be working our way up to the PS1 because we primarily stream on a PS5. So as soon as we can get to the PS1 titles, PlayStation titles is really what's going to be most highlighted here, as we're streaming everything from our PS5. So we're going to be going through the PlayStation Classics catalog, like all the PS1 games, PS2 games, PSP. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot to get through here. Anyway, be looking forward to the first console war next stream. We're going to find out whose side they are on. Until next time, peace out. This has been Clue Cloyd with Retro Age Gaming.